The writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau once said, "Relationships with others are a waste of time. They threaten the integrity of the self and interfere with the expansion of the individual soul." That sounds rather harsh, but I came across that quote years ago, wrote it down, memorized it, and often reflect back on it when things go wrong with people. I think friendships are great in one sense. They're kind of easy, but romantic relationships have always been a problem for me. And I keep telling myself not to get involved anymore. And I remember back when I was in college, I met this beautiful Indian girl named Anne-Marie. I was truly infatuated with her. And we went on a few dates and then she dropped me. Back then, I had no idea how to interact with women, and I guess she saw that and quickly moved on to other guys. That one relationship impacted me for the rest of my life. And I told myself I would never allow anyone to hurt me like that again. And really, it wasn't her who hurt me. I hurt myself. Because nobody could ever do anything to us. We do it to our own selves. But it was all a learning process. And as I moved and evolved through this wonderful life experience packet I was given, eventually I would marry and divorce, find myself in some amazing but turbulent relationships, and ultimately in my late 40s, where I am now, realize that the solitary life is the best bet. I'm sure some of you can relate to my story. I had a long-term relationship with a woman from 2020 into 2021. I've mentioned her on the channel before. However, that ended and I was single for a while. But then, 2 months ago, I met someone that I thought was pretty special. And we had things in common. And while there was a bit of an age gap, it wasn't any big deal to me as she looked much younger than her years. A lot of you don't know anything about her because I intentionally did not bring her up. Most of my audience likely thought I was with Rose, the blonde woman that I've made several videos with over the last few weeks. But Rose and I are friends, and in many ways, at least for me, that's a lot better than being in a relationship. And the reason I didn't mention my love interest is because I didn't know how it would turn out. And wouldn't you know it, but I think she just decided to end it. Last night she told me she wants to pick up her stuff, she has a few things here, and be done. And in some ways, that's a relief for me because I don't think I'm the relationship type anymore. As I've become older and more evolved, I find myself moving further and further away from the mainstream way of thinking and doing things. For example, I don't care much about modern pop culture. I really don't care to socialize with people, especially people I don't know. And I almost never eat out anymore. Whenever I do, it's only because of social reasons such as major occasions. And even then, I have to be very selective about what I eat. Due to my autoimmune condition, I need to be extremely careful about what I put into my body. One wrong lunch or dinner could cause my skin to break out, or even worse, painful arthritis that affects me for days after. So I've learned to be very disciplined with my diet, and I basically eat the same thing every day. I also never drink alcohol. The only thing I ever drink is distilled water unless I'm out somewhere and have to drink spring or bottled water. Most women like to socialize, go to shows, eat out, and be entertained. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but that's just not me. I don't like watching a movie just for the sake of watching a movie. It has to be something meaningful and have a good story. Besides, I'm more about creating content rather than consuming it. Plus, I always like to be productive. That could mean working on videos, going to the gym, riding my bike, or reading. And there's always so much to do. Maybe some of you can relate to this, but I feel when I'm not doing those things, I'm somehow wasting my time. And I don't know how I arrived here, but dating and relationships have taken on much less importance than being productive and working on myself spiritually. Now don't get me wrong, I love females, love the way they look and feel, but I ultimately realized that trying to be in a romantic relationship at this point in my life is probably a selfish endeavor because I make a really crappy boyfriend. I just prefer to spend my time alone doing the things that can lead to my spiritual, personal, and financial goals. Harkening back to what Thoreau said, relationships are not for everyone. It may be strange to say this, and perhaps some of you won't believe me, but I don't even require human touch. I don't require someone to be around all the time or even part of the time, and I've become completely self-sufficient and accustomed to being on my own and sleeping alone on my sofa. I make all my own meals and consume them alone, and I do all my business and video making pursuits alone as well. The same holds true for the gym and riding my bike. A lot of people need a gym partner or external motivation. I've always been self-motivated, which is why I go to the gym 4 times a week and I give it my all every workout. I truly tried to make this recent relationship work, but ultimately it failed. And it wasn't my decision to walk away, it was hers, but I absolutely understand her reasons, and that's why from this point on, I don't think I'll ever be involved in a long-term relationship again. There's just too much sacrifice. And she's the type of person who gives a lot and expects a lot in return as well. Being that she's spiritually minded to a degree and a good person overall, I'm sure it will be an amicable breakup. But at this point, I'm waiting for her to come over and take her stuff. It does suck to part, but in the end, it's the best thing for both of us. If there's one thing that I can't stand about being in a relationship, it's where the other person is always disappointed and voicing their frustrations. Most of it was that I'm not available and I don't make her feel like she's important. I get it. I'm just not cut out for this. It's like taking a monk out of his cell and forcing him to be in a romantic relationship, and in South Florida of all places, where money, looks, and status hold a lot of importance. Funny, but I have a friend named Seth who is 6 years younger than me, and he gave up women 5 or 6 years ago and said he just wants to crawl into his turtle shell and be to himself. I didn't understand him back then, but now I do. Life is not easy for me physically. Some days I wake up and my skin breaks out because of my psoriasis, and that's the real reason for me wearing those hats. If it wasn't for the psoriasis, I'd go hatless more often. Though some of those hats look pretty cool. I think you guys have mixed opinions about that. But if I wake up with a skin eruption or a terrible arthritis somewhere in my body, I'd much rather suffer alone than be around someone. Some of you may see that as odd, but that's my preference. Let me just deal with these issues alone. That's what I'm thinking. Besides, most of the time I have flare-ups, I'm not in the best of moods. And although flare-ups happen much less these days because I know how to control my autoimmune condition through diet, it can still happen here and there, especially when it rains as it's doing now. And if you're still watching this video, I truly appreciate you. I did a couple of live streams over the weekend, one by myself on Saturday and the other with Chris Sinatra on Sunday. And I think both came out good, and I was especially pleased with the one I did on Saturday by myself. Now, during those live streams, I mentioned there is a galactic and spiritual conference happening